we are going to the bridge story. Oh, yeah, we need to talk about this. So many of you know that my family is from Baltimore. Most of my family members still live in Baltimore or the Baltimore area, minus my parents. And there actually was a bridge, a huge bridge in Baltimore, the Francis Scott Key Bridge, that actually collapsed. And this is like a big deal. I don't know for people who have not visited the area, but that bridge is huge, right? So we need to talk about the bridge collapse. And some of you did reach out to me earlier. I was actually at the gym when I started getting messages from people asking me if my family was okay. My family members are fine. They were not on that bridge at the point in time. But before we get into this story, one thing I do want to say is I know some people have said on Twitter that this is an infrastructure issue. This is actually more of a piloting era, like not an infrastructure issue, although we do still have a problem with our infrastructure, particularly our bridges in this country, which I'll show you after this clip. But this has to deal with bad steering of the boat. So I do want to go ahead and get into this clip here of the Baltimore bridge collapse. Yikes, folks.
A major bridge in Baltimore has collapsed after being struck by a cargo ship. Eamon Javers has the latest for us from the scene. Eamon.
Wilf, that's right. Officials here just wrapping up a press conference over the past couple of minutes and giving us new details now on the terrifying moments just before the bridge collapsed at about 1:30 a.m. this morning in the dark of night. Officials saying that the crew of the ship, this nearly 1,000-foot long commercial vessel, the Dolly, a Singapore flagged vessel, were able to issue a mayday call just before the impact, and they were able to transmit information to officials.
I just wanted to pause here and I'll go back. I just want to show you the impact here. So here's the ship, and you can see the ship ran right into this column here. It appears the lights went out on the ship before it hit the bridge. So that's probably why they did not see that part of the bridge there. Obviously, they were supposed to go under it, not directly into it.
A mayday call just before the impact, and they were able to transmit information to officials here at the Port of Baltimore that they had lost propulsion. And that was enough notice, Governor Wes Moore said just moments ago, for crews on either side of the bridge to block traffic. Whatever early morning traffic was already moving, they said they were able to stop cars from getting onto the bridge, and that may have saved quite a few lives, as there were not a lot of vehicles on the bridge at the moment it went down. Tragically, though, there was a construction crew on the bridge at the time that it collapsed. The construction crew was simply filling potholes on the overnight shift. They say there were 8 people who were on the bridge when it went down. 6 of those are still being looked for. Search and rescue crews, they say, are on the scene and continue to search for those victims. No word yet on the fate of those 6. 2 others were rescued. One has been hospitalized. One was remarkably able to walk away on his own power in the wake of this disaster. So a real brush there for that individual, but 6 still unaccounted for, and they are continuing to look. I asked Governor Wes Moore of Maryland just moments ago what his prognosis is for reopening shipping here at the Port of Baltimore, if he has any early indication of how long commerce is going to be stopped at this.
Pause. This was something I noticed. The big thing that they were focused on was commerce, right? Like there were people that plunged into the water, the people that were on that bridge. Now, some of them they've been able to recover. They have not found everyone. I'm pretty sure they're going to tell you that some of these people have died because of this. But the point is, again, notice how they focus back on commerce, because there are a lot of trucks that pass through this bridge. So they're talking about, again, the supplies and capital, that is their focus. And I have to say this, number one, even though they're saying this is not because of infrastructure issue, this is because the ship hit it. They said this would happen to any other bridge if the same thing were to happen. I think one thing that we got to point out is that why is it that we have one way in, one way out in some of these spaces in the United States. That should not be your only way in. That should not be your only way across. And I've been complaining about this in Boston as well. If you've ever been here to Boston, you know we have a lot of bridges here. The Tobin Bridge is old. It is a freaking mess. That bridge should have been replaced a long time ago. And I've said this before. I think it's only a matter of time before the Tobin is just gonna, it's old. You know what it's like driving across a bridge and you're seeing potholes and you're bobbing and weaving and trying to avoid the hole at the same time. You want to stay in your lane and you don't want to go off the bridge. So a lot of these bridges in the US are just not stable. So that is an issue. But the other problem is this should not be your only route in. Also, notice what they focus on first. What is more important to them? Commerce. Capital, money. It reminds me, like during the BLM protests, a lot of the commentators that were more focused on protecting Target, protecting H&M, protecting property, more worried about capital than about the people. So this is a failure of infrastructure in the United States because there should never be just one way to get to where you have to go. This has been a problem in this country for a long time.
Major East Coast port. He said it's simply too early to say that right now. He said their focus is on search and rescue at this minute. But he did also say, guys, that he was able to rule out at least one potential factor here in causing this incident. Take a listen to the governor of Maryland just a few moments ago.
We are still investigating what happened, but we are quickly gathering details. The preliminary investigation points to an accident. We haven't seen any credible evidence of a terrorist attack.
So at this point, this just seen as a tragic accident here at the Port of Baltimore. But as you guys know, such a major hub for commerce and business up and down the East Coast, major port here for automobiles, the largest port on the East Coast for automobile arrivals in the United States. More than 800,000 cars and light trucks arrived at this port in 2023, the 13th year that it was a leading port for automobiles here on the East Coast. So it gives you a sense of the scale of the economic impact that we're now going to start to see. The governor said at this point it's going to be an all-of-society effort to get this bridge out of the water and to reconstruct. He said they're going to reconstruct better than before, and he said they're going to reconstruct in a way that preserves the memory of those who have been impacted. Too early to say what the ultimate casualty count here will be because search and rescue is still going on, but at this point they are saying that they are going to rebuild here in Maryland. Back over to you guys.
A major bridge.
Okay, so let's talk about something here for just a second, because there is something I think that you do need to see. I've shown this on the show before, but when we talk about the infrastructure that we have in this country, it is a problem. And I've complained about the bridges for quite some time. And again, that should not be your only reliable route. You shouldn't have to rely on just the Francis Scott Key Bridge. The American Society of Civil Engineers, they actually give us a report card. They grade our infrastructure, and they have given us a C-. American Society of Civil Engineers. You guys should check this out when you get time. America's infrastructure scores a C-. That's bad. This is not like when we're in school and your teacher's like, it's a C-, but we kind of just remember I didn't grade on the curb. No, this is not about that. This is not that moment where it's like you can do some extra credit and maybe increase that C- to a C or a C+. No, this is bad. And wait till you see how they score our bridges. So what's cool about this site here, the report card, if you scroll down, there are different categories. You don't want to see the one for drinking water, but you can hover over them. Aviation, they give us a D+. Bridges are a C. You see this? Broadband, they didn't score that one. Did I score that one yet? No, they didn't score that one. Dams, they give us a D. Drinking water, a C-. Energy, they give us a C-. It goes on and on, but let's dive into bridges. So we scroll down, it says, they give us a C, and it says, overview of bridges, there are more than 617,000 bridges across the United States. Currently, 42% of all bridges are at least 50 years old. So that's part of the problem. But they give you these scores. They have operations and maintenance, raising the grade, right? So let's scroll down. There's condition and capacity, bridge condition by year. So these bridges that we have, like, they're in need of repair. Bridges should not look like this. Like, you should not have to worry about these types of things. It says the most recent conditions and performance report from the Federal Highway Administration estimates the bridge backlog for repairs for existing bridges at $125 billion, and also estimates that we need to increase spending on bridge rehabilitation by 58% from $14.4 billion annually to $22.7 billion annually if we are to improve the condition. But our government, when they passed that infrastructure bill, I told you guys at that time that it was actually, that wasn't enough. That wasn't even enough to maintain what we need to do, let alone improve our infrastructure. But they're giving $100 billion to Ukraine. So, and then if we look at percentage of structurally deficient bridges, so you can see here, you can hover over different ones. Louisiana, 13.2%. I think, is this the one, the highest? West Virginia, 21.0%. That makes sense. West Virginia is one of the poorest states in the country. So that does not surprise me, right? If we go here to Maine, 12.8%. Rhode Island, 22.3%. Doesn't surprise me. Rhode Island has a poor economy. It's been that way for a couple of years, actually. So if we scroll down here, it talks about innovation and it explains, what we can do, operations and maintenance. It talks about here, each TAMP is required to predict and set targets for bridges that will be in good or poor condition over the next 10 years. Strategic asset management is one of the most cost-effective ways that the nation is addressing its aging and deteriorating bridge inventory. The reason why I'm showing you this, guys, is because I want you to see the work is being done. People have already done the research. So when you hear politicians say we need to research or we need to look at that, there's nothing to research. The research is done. Every year, the American Society of Civil Engineers, they review this information and they give us a report card. So if they wanted to see what's needed, right, to maintain and to repair and improve, they could just go to this report card from the American Society of Civil Engineers, the ASCE. I mean, who else would you go to? They tell you how to raise the grade, right? So in fact, nearly 21,000 bridges were found to be susceptible to overtopping or having their foundations undermined during extreme storm events. In seismic regions, earthquakes are a significant threat, and a bridge's ability to withstand these extreme events is a significant safety issue. We got to talk about that. Raising the grade, solutions that work, increase funding from all levels of government. That's for bridge repair, rehabilitation, and replacement. Prioritize rehabilitating and preserving bridges in fair condition. Develop a balanced approach for our current aging bridge inventory that emphasizes preservation. So again, they even tell you what to do. Like, you don't even have to look this up on your own. But our infrastructure in this country, it's a problem. And that measly infrastructure bill that they passed, that didn't even meet the maintenance requirement from the ASCE. I like to look at these reports every now and then, just like I look at the report for the housing costs in the United States. It's really important for you to see these things on your own, because the government is lying to you. And they're not going to explain these things to you. They're not going to show you this. And I said it before. If you look at, the water, Why is our water a C minus? Why is it? Where is all this money going? Our nation's drinking water infrastructure is composed of 2.2 million miles of pipe. The drinking water. By 2019, utilities were replacing between 1% and 4.8% of their pipelines per year on average. So this is important. People need to know why we have these low grades. I'll try to see if I can find one that's above a C. Hazardous waste D+, inland waterways D+, levees D, public parks D+, ports B-. The ports, the rail B for the rail. Even though we don't have high-speed rail, they have it as a B. Roads a D. Schools, the schools are a D+. You know that? You know why? There's still some schools in this country that still have lead. They still have to deal with lead issues because the buildings are so old, particularly here in New England. A lot of the buildings here are really old, right? So the kids, are they safe at school? Well, what are they breathing in? What about the water they're drinking from the water fountain? So solid waste, a C+, stormwater, a D, transit, a D-, and wastewater, D+. This is embarrassing. And if we want to tally this up, according to the ASCE, we failed. But they're giving billions to Ukraine, 3.8 billion to Israel. Now, I wanted you to see this because I want you to realize it's not just Jackson, Mississippi. It's not just West Virginia. It's not just Flint, Michigan.